Game collections, a way for a company to package together some of their older games, whether it's for an anniversary, remasters of classics, or just simple ports. With the Super Mario Galaxy collection coming out this month, I thought it would be a good time to go over some of the best and worst collections Nintendo has ever made, based on the games themselves, the price, and anything else that came with it. Starting with Mario 3D All-Stars, when Nintendo announced this in 2020, the internet lost its collective mind. The trailer hit out of nowhere, and suddenly the first three 3D Mario adventures were coming to Switch. Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. What better way to celebrate Mario's 35th anniversary than HD remasters of some of the most beloved games in the series? For fans, this was massive. It was the first time Sunshine had ever been re-released since the GameCube. Like, sure, it was divisive, but it was beloved as well and stuck on outdated hardware, and now it was back in HD on a modern console. And honestly, the excitement for this game was justified. Mario 64 is still one of the most important games ever made. Sunshine is kind of awkward at times, but it's a fascinating one. It's experimental, playful, and full of personality. And Galaxy is, in my opinion, maybe the best game ever made. 3 iconic platformers spanning 11 years of Nintendo history, all together for the first time. But once we got more info, some cracks started to show. On the positive side, yes, the games looked good. Galaxy's lighting still looks gorgeous, even in 2020. And 64 runs smoother than it ever did on the N64 hardware, but that's basically it. The soundtrack player was a nice touch, but it felt like Nintendo checked the bonus feature box and just moved on. And then came the biggest gut punch. It was limited time only. That's right, Nintendo said, hey, these 3 legendary games are back, but only for a few months, then we're pulling it from stores forever. Now, I got this game, so it's not a big deal for me, but I know a lot of people were disappointed that they just weren't able to get this. Because if you look at the prices now, fans were understandably baffled. Like, why would you limit access to something that should be celebrating Mario's legacy? It just made no sense other than manufacturing artificial scarcity. Now, if there was like a big collector's edition, I could get that, but the game itself? It didn't help that Super Mario Galaxy 2 was completely missing as well. One of the best reviewed games in Nintendo's history just wasn't there for some reason, and Nintendo never explained why, but with the Galaxy collection out now, it makes more sense. So what you ended up with was this strange package. 3 phenomenal games, handled with minimal effort, sold under a weird time bomb. It's not a bad collection, it's far from it. I think this was definitely worth it. The games themselves are masterpieces, but the presentation is just kind of the bare minimum. And at the time, this was a full $60 release, which doesn't sound bad for 3 great games. But again, there was literally nothing new in any of these outside of some visual polish. I would still call this one of the better Nintendo collections just because of what it had, but I know a lot of fans were left with wanting more. Picture this. It's 2003, the GameCube is struggling to match PlayStation 2's dominance, and Nintendo decides to give fans a little incentive to stick around. So they make a special disc, one that bundled The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. That's 4 generations of Zelda history on a single GameCube disc. And at the time, that was unheard of. Remember, this was before Virtual Console, before digital libraries, before NSO subscriptions. If you wanted to play older games, you had to dig out your NES or N64. So having them all here running off one disc was huge. For longtime fans, it was like owning the Zelda Bible. Like, you could relive the NES classics and jump straight into the cinematic N64 era without ever changing cartridges or cords. Like, you just had the one disc. It even came with a short Wind Waker demo, which made it feel like a literal treasure chest of Zelda history. But it wasn't all perfect. There were some technical bumps. The N64 game didn't always run perfectly. Majora's Mask in particular had frame rate hiccups and occasional sound glitches thanks to the emulation limitations of the day. Nothing unplayable, but enough to remind you this was a 2003 experiment, not like a polished remaster. And then there's a big one, no A Link to the Past. Like, how do you release something called the Collector's Edition of Zelda and skip one of the most iconic entries? It's like a Mario collection without Mario 3. Nintendo also made this game sort of difficult to get. You couldn't even buy it in stores without getting it with a console. You had to get it through special promotions like registering your GameCube or subscribing to Nintendo Power, and it became a coveted collector's item overnight. So yeah, it's flawed and doesn't really serve a purpose today where you can easily play any of these games, but in the early 2000s it was a really big deal. If Mario 3D All-Stars was a missed opportunity at points, Super Mario All-Stars and Wii was a missed opportunity in maybe every sense of the word. So now let's give credit where it's due. The original Super Mario All-Stars on SNES, released back in 1993, was amazing. It took the 4 main NES Mario games, Super Mario Bros., The Lost Levels, Super Mario Bros. 2, and Super Mario Bros. 3, and completely overhauled them. We're talking new graphics, remastered music, cleaner controls, and save functionality, something the NES versions never had. For millions of players, this was the definitive way to play 2D Mario. It was a genuine labor of love, and it still holds up beautifully today. But when Nintendo re-released that same game for the Wii for Mario's 25th anniversary in 2010, they did not add pretty much anything. Like, it was the same game. They took the SNES ROM, slapped it on a Wii disc, put it in a red box, and called it a day. There's no widescreen support, no new bonus features, not even a new title screen. It just boots up exactly like the SNES game, which would have been fine if this was a virtual console release, but not a full-price retail product. Now, to be fair, it did come with a soundtrack CD and a small art booklet, but the CD was like 10 tracks long and half of it was sound effects, like coin noises on this, really. And the art booklet was like cool, but very short. It felt like something you'd get as a free pre-order bonus, not like the centerpiece of an anniversary package. This was just really disappointing because the idea was great. 25 years of Mario deserved a proper retrospective, but it was just a re-released SNES game. Like, they couldn't add Super Mario World, the Super Mario Land games, maybe even Super Mario 64 if they wanted to have a 3D game. And the thing is that the game itself is still fantastic. Like, it's still a great SNES game, it doesn't make it bad because it's on the Wii, but it's just a reprint of it, there's nothing different here. Now, I grew up with the Wii and I actually got this when it came out, so I had a lot of fun with this collection and got it as a gift. It's also a nice collector's edition to have, but besides that, it was just very disappointing for most fans. The original Pikmin games were these wonderfully odd strategy titles about tiny plant creatures multitasking and the anxiety of leaving half your Pikmin to die when the sun sets. Back on GameCube, these were technical marvels, like seeing dozens of creatures moving at once felt impossible for 2001 hardware. These games also re-released on the Wii with some new controls and some minor quality of life improvements. On Switch, both games finally look clean, colorful, and sharp in HD, like no more blurry textures or muddy lighting. It does look better here. And also, this announcement came out of nowhere, where Nintendo just announced the Pikmin 1+2 collection, where you get the original 2 Pikmin games just released on Switch, and you can play with modern dual-stick controls, or with the classic pointer styles that veteran Pikmin fans love. For new players, it's an easy gateway into the series, and for returning ones, it's the first time these games have ever looked this crisp. Now, if you're expecting new content, you won't really find it here. It's just the 2 games, wonderful games sure, originally released on the eShop for $50 before a physical double pack appeared later. Yeah, it might be a little pricey for very simple remasters of GameCube games, but coming out to $25 each for the games that you can't play without a GameCube or original Wii with GameCube support while getting HD support is still nice and makes it worth it for that price if you're really looking to get into these games. Now, this is similar to 3D All-Stars, but the difference is that nothing is missing here. Pikmin 3 is already on the Switch, and this was not a limited time release, so it avoids some criticism that collection got. You also can usually find this for around like $40 now, so I think getting both these games for $20 when they're not the easiest games to come across or play, I think it's definitely worth it. Now for the first remakes on here, we have Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. It's a collection that fans wanted for a very long time, but wasn't without controversy and behind the scenes issues. On the bright side, these remakes absolutely nail what made the original Game Boy title so beloved. They're charming, colorful, and perfectly balanced strategy games that somehow make cartoon tanks feel emotionally intense. WayForward's new art style with the cel-shaded toy box look is nice in motion, animations look high quality, and the reorchestrated soundtrack is also great. And gameplay-wise, it's what you'd expect. It's the same grid-based tactics you remember, capturing cities, managing unit counters, and unleashing co-powers that can turn an entire battle around. They even added online play, map sharing, and an updated war room mode. For a series that had been dormant for over a decade, Reboot Camp felt like a miracle. But let's be honest, there were problems. First, $60 for 2 remade GBA games is steep. These are small, 2001 era handheld titles, and even with the new visuals, it's just hard to justify full AAA pricing when Kirby's Dream Collection offered 6 games and a ton of extras for less money a decade earlier. Then there was the awkward launch. Nintendo delayed the game for more than a year due to real-world conflicts, but it completely deflated the hype. By the time Reboot Camp finally arrived, it felt like a forgotten afterthought in Nintendo's lineup. So yeah, Advance Wars 1+2 is one of the best playing collections on this list, but also one of the strangest handled, an incredible revival overshadowed by price, timing, and silence. Still, I'd take great game, awkward circumstances over a lazy port any day. And I really do like the concept here. They remade 2 classic handheld Nintendo games and released them as a package. I would love to get something like this for maybe some of the Mario and Luigi games, but hopefully they would just handle that a little bit better. Now moving on to a game I just mentioned, Kirby's Dream Collection on the Wii. This was just fantastic in my opinion. We were getting 6 full Kirby games from across multiple generations. Kirby's Dream Land, Dreamland 2, Kirby's Adventure, Superstar, Dreamland 3, and Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards. That's a complete evolution of Kirby right there, from black and white Game Boy simplicity to some of the best games in the series. But it doesn't stop there. Kirby's Dream Collection adds so many thoughtful extras that it honestly makes other Nintendo anniversaries look embarrassing. There's a timeline museum where you can scroll through every major Kirby release with notes, concept art, trivia. There's a sound test mode with dozens of tracks. There's even a set of bonus challenge stages built in the Return to Dreamland engine, adding brand new gameplay to an anniversary collection. It's clear how Laboratory and Nintendo poured genuine passion into this project, Everything from the pastel menus to the celebratory music screams thank you for 20 years of Kirby. Even the physical box was loaded, it came with a soundtrack CD and art booklet, both worth displaying on their own. Now sure, it's not flawless, it's missing Kirby's Dream Course and a few side titles, and the emulation can feel slightly inconsistent between SNES and N64 transitions, but those are tiny nitpicks in a collection that otherwise sets the gold standard for how Nintendo should handle anniversaries. This feels like if Super Mario All-Stars on the Wii had actual thought put into it. It didn't need to reinvent any of the games, but it just gave you more and had more effort included. Now let's talk about one of Nintendo's biggest missed opportunities in recent memory, Mario Party: The Top 100. Unlike the other games on this list that are just collections of games, this was technically a new game. When this game was first announced, I was curious about it, but disappointed it was coming out on the 3DS in 2017. Imagine the best 100 minigames across from 10 Mario Party titles, polished, modernized, and packed into one definitive celebration of the series. That's the kind of concept that practically writes itself, the greatest of Mario Party. But what we got was just really underwhelming. Right away, the big problem is how soullessly streamlined it was. There's no real party mode, no full boards, no dice rolling, no friendships ending in dramatic betrayal. It's just the minigames stripped of the context that made them memorable in the first place. It's like watching highlight clips of a sports game instead of the actual game. Like sure, it's fun for a few minutes, but there really isn't much there. And look, the minigames themselves are great, like we're talking about Brick Squirm, Bumper Ball, Shy Guy Says, all the classics, but when you take away the board mechanics, the item chaos, the last 5 turn bonuses, what's left is a bunch of disconnected moments that don't really add up to anything bigger. And the worst part, it was a 3DS exclusive, and like I mentioned, this came out in 2017. Switch was already out, and no one wanted to take out their 3DS at this point to play Mario Party on here when they could have been playing it on a TV with friends. Imagine the same idea done right. Online play, full classic boards remade in HD, a nostalgic hub world showing off all 10 games, basically what Mario Party Superstars on Switch later became. In addition, the single player mode is kind of a slog. You unlock games slowly, play them in preset sequences, and there's barely any incentive to replay once you've seen everything. So yeah, Mario Party: The Top 100 is one of those collections that sounds amazing on paper, but ends up just feeling hollow. It's not awful, like the minigames are still fun in short bursts, but it's just not worth it. At least it did pave the way for Superstars on Switch, which finally did the idea justice. Now, we can't talk about Nintendo's best collections without bringing up Metroid Prime Trilogy. It's easily just one of the most impressive, fan-pleasing packages Nintendo has ever put together. When it dropped in 2009, Metroid Prime Trilogy took 3 of the most acclaimed first-person adventure games ever made, Metroid Prime, Prime 2 Echoes, and Prime 3 Corruption, and bundled them together on one Wii disc. That's already a crazy deal, but what makes it special is how Metroid Prime and Echoes weren't just ports, they were completely re-engineered to use the Wii Remote aiming controls introduced in Prime 3. And I cannot stress this enough how transformative this was. The original GameCube versions were great, but let's be honest, the twin-stick controls could feel a little clunky in tight quarters on the GameCube controller. But now suddenly you could aim and shoot with real precision, scan environments seamlessly, and experience those gorgeous alien worlds with a level of immersion that felt years ahead of its time. Even playing Prime 1 this way made it feel new again. Now I know some people don't like the Wii controls, I personally do for this. The whole thing was just polished to perfection. Menus were sleek, load times were reduced, the UI was unified across all 3 games, and you could even earn medals and bonuses through an in-game achievement system. It was the kind of thoughtful touch that made the package feel cohesive and not just 3 games on one disc, but a single crafted experience. Also, we gotta talk about value here. 3 massive 20+ hour games for $50, with one of these being a new game. Like Nintendo would charge $100 for this now. But of course there was one classic Nintendo catch. It was hard to find at launch, the print run was tiny, and within months it was already going for absurd prices online. For years fans were begging for a re-release on the Wii U or Switch, and while Metroid Prime Remastered finally scratched that itch for the first game, the full trilogy still hasn't resurfaced officially. It didn't just make the old games playable again, it enhanced them, and if Kirby's Dream Collection is the gold standard for 2D compilations, Metroid Prime Trilogy is the crown jewel of 3D ones. Honestly, it's hard to imagine Nintendo ever topping it. It's a rare case where they get everything right, like the gameplay, value, presentation, and just the reverence for one of their most atmospheric franchises. Now, I think Nintendo will still make some great collections, but of course with the value, they've just been charging ridiculous amounts for some games. I just don't think we're going to get this type of value again. I do hope we get something like this on Switch 2, where we actually get a chance to play 2 and 3, since there's no way to play those on the Switch now, like you can only play Remastered and Prime 4 when that comes out. Unlike everything I talked about before in this video, these are not just games. They're mini versions of classic Nintendo systems with built-in games, so I do consider it to be a collection. These things were a cultural phenomenon when they dropped. People were camping outside stores, scalpers were charging triple on eBay, and everyone from hardcore fans to casual gamers wanted one. And honestly, it made sense. Let's start with the NES Classic. It came preloaded with 30 of the most iconic 8-bit games ever made: Super Mario Bros., Zelda, Metroid, Punch-Out, Kirby's Adventure, and so many more. And the execution was just nearly flawless. The emulation was clean, the interface was slick, and the rewind and suspend features made those old school difficulty spikes a little more manageable. Even the controller felt authentic, just the same brick-like rectangle that we all know and love. Then Nintendo followed up with the SNES Classic, and somehow outdid themselves once again. 21 games including Super Mario World, Link to the Past, Super Metroid, Earthbound, and the long-lost Star Fox 2, which finally released officially after being cancelled in the 90s. That alone made it legendary, a decades-old secret project suddenly playable for the first time. The SNES Classic lineup was absurdly strong. The system is also built better than NES Mini, longer controller cords, smoother menus, and even better emulation. Now, of course, it wouldn't be Nintendo without a little frustration. They were impossible to find at launch. Like, stores got shipments of like 6 of these, and they'd sell it in under an hour. It became a whole event just trying to hunt one down. Still, when you did get your hands on one, it felt special. There was just something magical about booting up Super Mario World on a TV again, using real hardware, not a subscription, not an unofficial emulator, but an actual Nintendo console that respected its own history. These were $60 and $80 at release, and that may not be the best value you can get for these games, because obviously you can just play these on your browser easily, or you could have got them for like $5 on a virtual console. There was just something special about having the mini console with the clean interface and these replica controllers, because I doubt something like this ever happens again because of Switch Online, that does the exact same thing and has the aforementioned controllers that cost the same as this entire thing. Really wish we got like a Nintendo 64 Classic and a GameCube Classic, because it was just a neat collectible to have and just made it feel more authentic. And now finally, we arrive at the collection you were probably waiting for, the Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 collection. This was announced just a month ago and already released as part of Mario's 40th anniversary, and there is a lot to unpack here. Now, the games are definitely improved. It's not just a 4K port, but Nintendo has improved lighting and textures. There's a few minor new features like amiibo support and some new storybook pages, and of course these are two of the greatest games ever and finally gave us a way to play Galaxy 2 on the Switch, which was missing in 3D All-Stars. So what are the issues? It's the price. The collection is a whopping $70, and each game individually is $40. Remember, these games were released for like $20 on the Wii U eShop, and yeah, they're improved, but is it really worth double? Like, are you going to tell me 2 Wii games that came out 18 and 15 years ago, even together, are worth the same as Donkey Kong Bonanza or Tears of the Kingdom? Mario 3D All-Stars got complaints for being $60 when it included 3 games. And in addition to the game, Nintendo was releasing Super Mario Galaxy Amiibo for $40 each. Like, if you buy both of these, you would have spent more money there than on the collection itself. I think if Nintendo even just charged $60 for this, people would be a lot more positive with it. But $70 just seems like a cash grab even if there is effort put into this. I want to get this, but I'm fine with just waiting for a sale or buying it used on eBay. And those are some of the Nintendo collections I want to talk about. Nintendo really hasn't released too many collections like this. Like, I know there's a couple I didn't talk about, like the Game & Watch one. But let me know if there's any I should have talked about in this video. Let me know your favorite and least favorite Nintendo collections, and also let me know some you want to see. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to subscribe and like, and consider joining my Discord and becoming a channel member for just a couple bucks a month. Thank you for watching Domainy, and I'll see you next time.